This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. We are here with probably our biggest episode yet. We are talking about our individual top 10 films of 2023. If you guys didn't already notice, I'm fighting off a cold right now, but we still have to bring this content to you. And we're already January 11th by the time we're recording this, so we figured we want to get this out to you guys as soon as possible as we turn the page into 2024. A lot of great things coming out in the month of January and going forward. So we're going to tackle this head on. This is going to be an exciting episode. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello, everybody.
And also Zach Miller.
How's it going?
All right. So we are going to go over our top 10 favorite films of the year. The way this is going to work is essentially I'm going to say my number 10. If my number 10 happens to be on either Liz or Zach's list and vice versa for all of us, and it's lower on our list, then we're going to say punt. Whoever has it higher on their list or lower on their list is going to say punt. Mm-hmm. And then we'll eventually get to that conversation when we reach that film when it's lower on somebody else's list. We did this earlier on in the year when we were doing our favorite films of the year thus far. A lot of those films are still on this list, so I'm excited to dive into it and kind of talk about the things that we've seen this year. So the first thing I want to talk about the unfortunate number of movies that I haven't had a chance to see yet this year that I really wish I got around to that might have had a place on this list have I had seen it. Poor Things is a big one. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I'm really sad about it. Anatomy of a Fall, Godzilla Minus One, 1001, American Fiction, The Color Purple, The Creator, The Burial, Blackberry, All of Us Strangers, Rustin, American Symphony, The Boy and the Heron, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Tetris are all films that I really wish I got around to seeing this year that might have made it on my list if I had seen them. Mm-hmm. My honorable mentions for this year, I have Priscilla, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Barbie, I Like Movies, which we saw at the Indie Street Film Festival. I really love that movie, and Saltburn. So those are my honorable mentions. My number 10 is Ben Affleck's Air. Is it on either of your guys' lists?
It is not on my list.
Okay. Now, we all did see this movie.
Yeah, we saw it together.
We saw this film together. Fun fact for the Culture Wave audience that doesn't know this. We saw Air and did our chemistry test for this podcast network for Air, which was fun. That was a long time ago. That was back in April. But I want to give credit to this movie, especially because it's a film that came out in the the first half of the year. It's still somewhat in the awards conversation. But this was a movie that was like totally up my alley. I really like Ben Affleck's direction, and I liked him doing a smaller sort of film like this again, resetting his directorial path post Live by Night, which was not really well received. Mm-hmm. I love the ensemble in this movie. I thought originally, I mean, it's such a strong year, but I thought Viola would get nominated for supporting actress. I thought Matt Damon had a shot at Best Actor. He did get nominated for the Golden Globe, but it was just a movie that breathed so much life into it, and I love sports films, so that is why it is number 10 on my list. You guys have anything to say about it, or should we just move on?
No, I agree. I thought Viola Davis, she definitely was a standout for me when I think back on that film. A part of me thinks that maybe the reason that it's not so heavy in the award season is because it came out when it did. Like, it's not a forgettable film, but it definitely hasn't stayed in my mind in the forefront of lists. So I wonder if it did come out maybe closer to like Thanksgiving time when a lot of big named films are coming out, if it would have gotten more attention from the award season.
Yeah.
Zach?
I just think it was like, I mean, there's a lot of like sports movies and stuff like that too. I don't know if it was my not my favorite, and I didn't expect it to be my favorite, but it wasn't as memorable to me, I guess, because it felt like, you know, the story was it was a good story. It was like a success story. He pushed for something and he got the shoe brand, but that's kind of all I got out of it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I think you liked the movie a little bit more than I did.
Yeah, but it was more of a movie that I think as when I saw it too, it hit me like in the perfect spot where we hadn't seen a movie like that in a while. Something that, and again, the first movie in the Artist Equity banner for Affleck and Damon, which I really like what they're doing for film and trying to sort of put a pedestal for these smaller, more intimate dramas again and movies of this vein. So it lands number 10 on my list. Liz, give us some of your honorable mentions as well as your number 10.
All right. So first I'll say I have 4 films on my that I still need to watch list. It's The Color Purple, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, and Zone of Interest. Those are kind of the 4 that I still have like a very big interest in seeing. But a couple of my honorable mentions are Naiad, Bottoms, The Holdovers, and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. those
Okay.
4. There's some fun films there. Everyone's gonna die when I say what my number 10 is, but my number 10, if you listen to our episode about Oppenheimer, you would know why, but number 10 for me is Oppenheimer.
And that's going to be a
Wow.
punt for me. And Zach, is that going to be a punt for you as well?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. No, we'll get to it. We will.
Let's
We'll
move on.
definitely get to it. So Zach, let's hear your honorable mentions as well as your number 10 film as well.
Yeah, well, I'm recovering from that one. I hope our viewers can recover from Liz.
Stick with us.
Whoa.
Stick with us here.
Okay. Oh wow. I need to watch a couple big ones. A big one that I think might have actually made my top 10 was one that you saw, Liz, All of Us Strangers. And then I have a couple more: American Fiction, Rustin, The Creator, The Color Purple. There was definitely more that I didn't get to, but I got to most of the big movies this year. So I was just kind of going through like how many I saw, and I think those are the bigger ones that came to mind. And then some honorable mentions are Godzilla -1, Blackberry, Priscilla, and The Society of Snow, which just came out on Netflix. And that was really good too. But so that just fell kind of outside my top 10. But should I give my number 10?
You can give your number 10.
Okay, my number 10 is Barbie.
Oh, push that.
Okay, so that's also
Punt,
going to be
punt.
punted. So we'll get, again, guys, we'll get around to these when
First
they're
of all,
a little bit lower on
I'm
someone's list.
shocked. 10.
Hey,
What?
Barbie didn't even make my list.
I know. You guys are coming at me. I'm coming
listen,
back
look,
at you.
Barbie-
I like Barbie. I love Barbie. I just felt like there was so many. It was hard for me to pack in 10 that were ahead of that. And a lot of these are marginally ahead of each other. Like
I
on
feel
my list.
similarly.
That they're
Barbie
yeah.
is number 13 for me, and I just think it's a tough year. Like, it's a really, really great movie
Yeah.
year, which we've talked about in some recent pods, but I'm happy with the year we got in cinema.
Yeah.
But sorry,
All right.
Liz.
Well, we'll talk
It's
about
not
it.
there.
We'll talk about it.
My number 9, I think, is on neither of your guys' lists either. Definitely not on Liz's list. This is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It is on neither of your guys' lists.
No,
No.
it's not.
Okay. So I'll just talk about it quickly for my Marvel nerds.
I did see it. It was good.
You did say it,
It was
yeah.
good.
So I just think it's a really great wrap up to a trilogy of films in the MCU that people are going to miss the DNA that comes with these movies, how fun they are. And this film in particular takes a different turn in how emotional it is. And I think it's one of 2 of Bradley Cooper's great performances this year. This one being so much of a voice role, but the emotionality that comes with what Rocket has to deal with and the trauma that he endures on his creation. I just really love this franchise. And I remember being in high school when the first movie came out and being so confident in it. And so many people were nervous about the fact that like a C-list characters were coming to Marvel. And to me, it's arguably the best trilogy of films they've ever made. And James Gunn now going off to DC. I just wanted to give some love to Guardians. And I think that it's not my favorite of the 3 Guardians movies. The first one I think still holds a very near and dear spot in my heart. But I thought it was a really great emotional wrap up to the story overall. And I was happy to sort of see Rocket's story play out in that way. But Liz, give us a little glimpse of what you thought, because you didn't get to talk about it. I know you're not a Marvel fan, but I'm curious.
I'm digging into my brain right now to try to remember the film, because I'll be honest, it's not very memorable
Okay,
for me right
fair.
now. But the moment that you said Rocket, now it's coming back. Like, it was his story. It was entertaining.
Okay, I'll take that.
It was entertaining.
I will take that.
I wasn't bored, but
That's true.
I don't really remember fully. Like,
The story.
all I remember is the ending, and I don't want to spoil it for people.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
like, it was good. It
Okay.
was good.
Zach, we saw it together.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely one of the better projects that Marvel has done in probably the last at least 3 years.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like after the Spider-Man, the recent Spider-Man, this has probably been the best project that they've done.
Yeah.
So I was happy with it. I thought I was entertained by it. It's definitely somewhere middle of the pack on my list of the whole year, I guess. But yeah, I was entertained by
Yeah,
it. So.
the rewatch helped me on this one. It
Did
was
it?
a little lower than 10, and then I moved it into the top 10.
Because when did it come out?
It came out in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's been a while. Again. Liz, you're number 9.
My number 9, and I don't think it's on either of yours, but it's Priscilla.
Just missed my list. Was
I think
literally
I had
number
it
11 for me.
Yeah.
Zach,
Yeah.
I love that for
Wow,
us.
I love that.
All right, so yes, Priscilla was my number 11, Zach's number 11, your number 9.
Nice.
Let's
My number
talk about it.
9. I just am a huge fan of Sofia Coppola's, so I feel like a part of me was like, I need to have this on my top 10 list. But also, I'm putting it this high up because I think it was actually probably one of my favorite production sets and costumes. I think that the way they transported the audience and me as a viewer back to that time frame, it was just beautiful to watch. Also, for Kaylee Spaney's performance, I think she deserves to be nominated over and over again for it. It really put her on the map for a lot of people. And she just did a beautiful job of telling that story. What'd you guys think?
Yeah. Go ahead, Zach. You
Oh,
go.
okay. All right. I really liked Priscilla a lot. There was really like not much that I found wrong about the movie. I know when we talked about it too, Priscilla just has a lot going for it. They did a great job with the set design. They did a great job with handling the tone of the story and how important it was to tell that story too. And Coppola is such a good fit for that movie again, like we were saying. So I hope it gets some love at the Academy Awards. I think it should get a couple nominations, It's a very stacked year, so I'm interested to see how it plays out and how it stacks up against everything else. But yeah, I really like the film.
Yeah, Kaylee Spaney's performance is probably in my top 5 for female performances of the year. The way it's trending, I don't know if she gets in. It's such a hard year.
I think she's too green, maybe.
Yeah,
that they're you'll
they
have
might,
more.
Yeah, I agree. I have only seen a small select few of Sofia Coppola's movies, but this is probably my favorite that I've seen of hers. I thought the movie as a whole was just such a pleasure to watch. Even though there are moments obviously that are not pleasurable to watch in terms of content, but I thought the movie as a whole was really, really well done. And I agree with you in terms of a lot of the below the line stuff, the production design, the location scouting that was done, the costumes, so much of it, the direction. I thought that the movie as a whole was really, really great, and that's why it just missed my top 10. But it was a movie that I really, really enjoyed. So yeah, just missed my top 10. Zach, you're number 9.
My number 9. Okay, this might be a punt for you, but it's Across the Spider-Verse.
That is a punt for me.
Okay.
That is a
All
punt
right.
for me. All right.
Wow.
So
Your number 8.
my number 8, and this is the end of the I guess I shouldn't say the end, but this is the last, I guess, of the popcorny sort of films that are on my list. But now my number 8 is John Wick Chapter 4, which again is another sequel. It's another trilogy ender, hopefully. I know it's not on either of your guys' list. Right?
I haven't even seen it.
I know you haven't seen it. Zach, you haven't seen it yet either, right?
I haven't. That was one of the films that came out earlier in the year. I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I think it was February or March. But I was like late to the John Wick movies. Like I didn't see them when they were in theater. This is the first and only one I got to see in a theater.
Okay.
And I just thought in terms of like action movies, it's as epic as it gets. Like I just thought that the choreography that's done in this movie for the action sequences put it on a pedestal of like arguably one of the top 5 best action movies I've ever seen. There's so much in and not only the action choreography, but like the locations and how everything feels different. Every fight feels different. Every battle between characters feels different. And even though some of the characters really have very minimal dialogue, it still makes the movie like you're able to feel out who the characters are just based on fighting style, based on who they are in the landscape of what John Wick is. There's talk of them doing another movie. I would hate that because I thought this was just the perfect way to wrap up all of it. But yeah, John Wick Chapter 4 is my number 8.
All right.
And it's on either of your guys' lists.
I've actually never seen any of the John Wicks.
You would like the first one, I think.
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see. You're number 8.
I didn't get to see if this is on either of yours, but my number 8 is Saltburn.
Just missed mine. That was an honorable
Missed
mention.
mine too.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Outside.
I didn't know it was going to be in
Outside.
your top 10. I'm a little surprised.
Are you? Why?
I am. I just didn't think that it would I didn't think it would crack it. I thought it would be like right below it for you. It was for me. It was like
I think it's just because of the amount of attention it's now getting. It's just really sitting in my memory. Like this list that I took it as things that I keep thinking about or things that I would rewatch, I'm totally going to rewatch Saltburn because I feel like there's a lot of things now that I know how the story actually goes. I could see in the beginning to pick up a little bit of Easter eggs. Also, I'm starting to become a fan of Emerald Fennell. Like, I really liked Promising Young Woman that she did, and I really liked this. So I'm buckled up for anything that she does.
Yeah.
I think the story's crazy. I mean, everybody's talking about the scenes. It just is a film that kept me on the edge of my seat, and I really didn't know where it was going. I think a lot of films, I'm that person that likes to try to figure out what's going to happen, and she did a great job of making me not be able to guess what was actually going to happen. So
Yeah,
giving it the credit that it deserves.
that's a great pick. It just, like I said, just missed my list. A lot of great performances in that film. A movie that certainly will stick with me for quite a long time in more ways than one. But the hype around the movie and the love that it's getting for a movie of that size, in terms of just like budget, and I'm excited that Amazon is sort of able to push movies like that. Again, like similar to what I was saying in the beginning with Air, two completely different movies, but smaller in scale with still great ensemble casts and telling these stories that we're not used to seeing in the limelight as much. And the fact that Saltburn's getting so much attention, I hope it means more for Barry Keoghan. Rosamund Pike needs to be in literally everything. I don't understand how after Gone Girl, like, her career didn't lead to her getting multiple Oscar noms. Like, I think she's brilliant.
Yeah.
But the movie as a whole, and Emerald Fennell is someone that I'm like really, really, really excited to see what she does next.
Although, have you guys seen that thing, the like report of how she's like, I want to see a relationship between, have you guys not heard about this?
Is this the Jurassic Park one? Yeah, we talked about this on off camera, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little,
I feel like I'd still watch it.
I don't know.
I'd still watch it.
I don't want her near franchises. Not in a bad way. Like, I think she would do franchises great, but like, I would want her to do something in the vein of like Barbie. Like, I wouldn't want her to like.
I don't know. I could
like
if
warping it.
she wants to do a Jurassic Park version, let her go off.
But like that specifically
Like,
in the
that's
Jurassic
a-
Park.
yeah, that's like-
that was a little much. I was like, you could do anything with Jurassic Park except that.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, Zach, did you have any thoughts on Saltburn?
Yeah, I was happy that the three of us and a lot of other people were kind of ahead of the trending side of it. You know, like we all saw it and appreciated the movie for what it is. And I really like Emerald Fennell's work too. I really liked Promising Young Woman. And when I saw this, I actually didn't know that was the same director.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, great. That's really cool. Like she can do that stylistically. And then this one was like a little bit bigger than Promising Young Woman just because of how much was in the real estate and like the estate itself. And I really like Linus Sandgren, who's the DP of this. He's shot a bunch of other great movies. And kind of what you guys were saying, I'm really happy that Amazon, of all places, would take a chance on a stylistic story like this and make it very allowed to just kind of go run with it and let it just manifest itself into what it became. So, and then for her to just take the risks that she did with trusting the actors, like it was such a good cast that they could kind of create their own space of creativity, and it was so refreshing, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of my take.
Yeah. All right, Zach. Keep the camera on.
Oh, it's on me.
It's your number 8.
You guys are gonna hate me, but my number 8 is the Iron Claw.
Wow.
It's a punt
Wow.
for me. Zach
Punt it. For me
Zach
too.
will eventually get to talk about his movies, everyone, but not anytime soon because all 3 of his first ones
Punt
have
it.
all been punted.
Like I said, it's not that it was bad. It was just that I liked.
You
other
can't talk
movies
about it
ahead.
yet.
We're not allowed to talk about it.
Okay, all right.
So
Sorry.
I will say this is crazy because we're gonna go to year 7.
I just looked at it.
All 3 of us have the same movie for number 7.
Wild.
Whoa.
Crazy.
And very perfect movie for a weird scenario like this to happen.
Absolutely.
Dream
Scenario.
scenario is all 3 of our number 7s.
That's wild.
We all got to see this movie together as well.
Yep. Not sitting near each other.
Not sitting near each other at all. But at the Montclair Film Festival, I sat next to a piece of shit, if you're listening. Jesus, what an asshole. Anyway, let's talk about Dream Scenario because we had a great review. I thought we had a great review on this film. Check it out if you haven't already. The American debut of Christopher Borgli as writer-director. And a movie that originally was conceptualized by Ari Aster, was supposed to have Adam Sandler in the starring role. Sandler dropped out. Astor moved on to Beau Was Afraid. Borgley steps in. You get Nicolas Cage. This movie was such a pleasant surprise. Like, I was excited. Obviously, I was excited for this because even in our most anticipated halfway, this was one of my 4 films that I talked about. But this is a return to form for Cage. And the only thing that makes me sad is that after this movie, he's like, I'm only doing like 4 more movies. Because he has hit such a sweet spot again in his career with things like this and things like Mandy and things like Pig that are so original and so different. And I love this movie for its originality. And this is a film that I can't wait to buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray because my whole family's waiting to see it because of how much I've been raving about it. So I can't wait to buy it and rewatch it because to me, out of my whole list, this is one that I think, like, realistically, I will rewatch this movie like every year for the rest of my life. I think it's great in terms of the rewatchability. But Liz, what about you on Dream Scenario?
I agree on the rewatchability. I also think that there's just so much packed into this script that on the first watch, you're just trying to get a hold of the story that you're missing out on a little bit of the like side comments or like underlying subtitle kind of. But I mean, Cage for me was just everything. Ever since I saw this film, I've been campaigning for him to get an Oscar nom. I don't know if he will. I hope they throw him a bone. I don't think he'll win. He definitely won't, but I think he deserves a nom. I think he played this character perfectly of being just a loser, honestly, just a complete loser that you feel sympathy for, but then you can also flip so easily of hating him and despising him. It was just great. I also think another new and upcoming writer director who I'm now going to start following his work more, which I'm always hyped about. It was a really great screenplay. I think it had a lot going for it and they delivered.
Zach?
I think, I love this movie. It was super original, just something I haven't seen before, which is getting hard to see more and more these days. You know, I feel like a lot of movies are duplicates of each other, but this one was so succinct and particular about being its own identity. And I really like what Borgley could do just with Nicolas Cage, and making his debut on a bigger film with A24 like that too is great. So, I really appreciated what Nick Cage was willing to do. Like we were just talking about in our review, he's a chameleon. He just goes into any role and he plays it to a T. And he's one of those gifted actors that can do that. So, it's hilarious. It's got everything going for it. It's original. And it's one of my favorites. So I love it.
We're about to reach a very interesting point in the list.
Where everything just gets punted.
Is going to get punted very slightly, I think, going forward.
Yep.
Liz, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Poor Things.
Ooh.
Which I think Zach's punting.
Ooh, yeah.
Zach will be punting that.
All right, we're punting.
Zach, your number 6?
My number 6 is The Holdovers.
Which is a very slight punt for me.
Okay.
So then we're going to go back to me. And I think this is also a punt. My number 6 is Maestro.
Which we're punting slightly for me.
And I think a little bit more for Zach. So then we'll go to Liz, your number
5, which is Maestro.
Okay.
So let's talk Maestro.
Okay, let's talk Maestro.
Right, because that's not higher up on Zach's?
Mine's higher.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Punt mine again.
So then wait.
Zach's your number 5.
My number 5?
Oh, that's also a punt.
Well, we might just have to start talking about it.
All right. So these are all going to be very closely clumped together in a lot of the ones we've already talked about.
What if we just go through our top 5 right now? Like you say what your top 5 are.
Well, let's go through our top 6 because we haven't even really.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So go through them and then we'll just end it.
Yeah, and then we'll just talk about them each.
My number 6 is Maestro. My number 5 is The Holdovers. My number 4 is The Iron Claw. My number 3 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. My number 2 is Past Lives. And my number 1 is Oppenheimer. Liz, why don't you give us your top 6?
My number 6, Poor Things. Number 5, Maestro. Number 4, The Iron Claw. Number 3, Barbie all the way. Number 2, All of Us Strangers, which I'll only be able to talk about. Yeah. And number 1, which is not a surprise, I think, Past Lives.
Okay. Zach, you're 6 through 1.
This is tough, man.
This is really hard.
Really tough. Number 6, The Holdovers. Number 5, Past Lives. Number 4, Poor Things. Number 3, Maestro. Number 2, Oppenheimer, and number 1, Anatomy of a Fall.
Which makes me so excited to see Anatomy of a Fall and All of Us Strangers.
I know.
All right, so let's start with Maestro.
Let's do it.
Maestro's my 6. It's Liz's 5. It's Zach's 3. One of my favorite reviews we've ever done on the channel. A really, really great movie. It is the only one of 2 in my top 6 that I haven't had a chance to rewatch, which might have moved it for me because Holdovers actually was lower on my list, and then I moved it to 5 after some rewatches. I still really, really love the movie. It just didn't hold up as much on the second viewing for me. But Maestro features probably my favorite performance of the year.
Okay.
With Carey Mulligan.
Wow. Yeah,
I think she's so revelatory in this film, and there's so much to that character. Plus Bradley, I obviously have every sort of crush on. But just the movie as a whole is fantastic, and I think it's going to lead to some other great opportunities going forward for Bradley Cooper as a director, and he really shined in this movie, not only on screen but off screen as well. Liz?
Yeah, I agree. I think for this film specifically, in the review I said it's not a perfect film by any means. I think the screenplay could have had more attention, but this just really emotionally moved me. I was very emotional at the end of it. It's just a great film. I think Bradley Cooper was completely flexing his muscle behind the scenes on this one. He was going hard on the camera work. He was making so many beautiful choices of not just making it a standstill camera, but making sure that when you're watching it, you're not just watching the performance or listening to the dialogue, you're also watching what the camera is doing and what that's telling you, which I think is just a huge jump for him from where he was with his first film debut. So I think it was beautiful. I know some people don't love it. They weren't super impressed with it, but I am a fan of this film all around. Zach
had it lowest on his list, number 3 spot.
Yeah. I really loved it. Yeah, it was the choices with the camera, the choice with making this about a personal piece instead of just his accomplishments was something that I was really struck by, and I love the attention to the details within his private life that they gave light to with just the filmmaking, and there was just a lot to love about this movie. And the biggest thing, if the performances were bad, this movie would have been horrible. Like if they didn't embody those characters, but in the sense that they were just humans and that they were going through their own personal turmoil, and that really shows a lot. And I just really liked the creative choices that he did with that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my take on Maestro.
Yeah,
that's
It's
Maestro.
a great film. All right, Liz, your number 6 was Poor Things, which I haven't had a chance to see yet. So you and Zach can go off on that one.
Zach, what was that number for you? Poor Things was
your
number 4. Okay, so we're close there. I fully stand by my decision of Emma Stone is going to win the Oscar. I'm going to say it. I don't think I'm wrong. Her performance, she carried that film. It's just something that I've never seen her do before, but it totally makes sense based on all of her past work. It was comedic timing. There was physical acting. It was a total different transformation into a different character that she's never been before. It was so funny. Also, the script, I didn't expect that. I thought it was going to be a little bit more dystopia, kind of trying to figure out like the sci-fi of it. But instead, it was just a really funny story about a woman, like a woman going into the world and figuring out life for herself. And I just thought it was brilliant. Zach?
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying too. I think the preparation of this film too is comparable to Oppenheimer in my opinion too. Like I think the scale of it to really get everything that they needed to get that surreal and the Frankenstein approach to her character, making the dialogue so sharp the entire time and then rehearsing that as well. There was just so much going for this movie that was so unique and so elevated above many films that I've like ever seen, let alone this year. it was just so resonant with like every way that they went into this film. So I really liked that for that reason. But yeah,
I still have to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet. Zach, your number 6 was
The Holdovers.
The Holdovers. All right, so let's talk about The Holdovers. Liz and I saw this at the Montclair Film Festival. Zach, you saw it a little after, correct?
yeah.
Zach, you talk about it first. Is it your number 6?
Okay, yeah. I love this movie. DJ, you and I love this movie too. That there's a lot. A lot of people like this movie too, and I think it'll be another Christmas classic like for a long time. I love the story. Paul Giamatti deserves so many awards for this, but it's a very stacked year, so it's okay if he doesn't get it. You know, I'm not gonna hate on it, but I'm glad he got the Golden Globe for it. And you know, it's just a feel good movie, and it's definitely sad at points, but it's a very personal story that a lot of people can relate to, and there's just a lot of characteristics to it that I enjoy. I love the period setting that they recreated. I love all of the intimate, like the cozy feeling that we were talking about behind the movie. So they just did a great job with making that, and I will get this like on Blu-ray whenever it comes out. So like I'll get it. It's one of those films like on this list, like I mean all these 10 basically I'll try and get at some point. But yeah, this was just such a like, this is the kind of movie that you and I appreciate a lot too.
For sure.
So.
I love the personal touch that this movie has. And Alexander Payne as a director, I never thought, I love The Descendants so much as a movie that I didn't think anything else he would ever do in his filmography would surpass it for me, but The Holdovers does. And I think it's between Giamatti and Cillian for the Oscar. They both won the Golden Globes between comedy, musical, and drama. So the differences, and I was talking to my family about this when we were watching the telecast, actually, like it's so hard because the performances are so entirely different. To me, I think it's Giamatti's best performance, but with Cillian, he's holding basically a whole movie on his shoulders. So it's tough. Yeah, this movie has so much heart. Like Zach said, a classic that I'll watch around the holiday season every single year, probably for the rest of my life. Divine Joy Randolph is fantastic in this movie. I think she's the front runner for Best Supporting Actress. And Dominic Sessa, Jersey Boy, literally in his first on-screen credit of his entire career, first project he's ever done. And he has to literally go toe-to-toe with these two fantastic performances. He has such a bright future as an actor, and I'm so excited to see what he does next. But this movie just embodies so much of just great relationships between people and seeing the natural fostering of what happens between people, even if like you don't really necessarily like each other in the beginning. You spend more time with one another. You start to learn the similarities you have between each other. And someone who's a former educator, like it hit me in the sweet spot. So Holdovers was number 5 for me. It was a little bit higher for Zach at number 6, and it just missed Liz's list. Do you want to talk about it a little bit, or?
I'll say the reason that it's not on my list.
Okay.
I liked this movie. I didn't love it for 2 reasons, which I think we've talked about. I feel like I've seen this script before. I feel like I've read it before. I don't know if it's really a new story. It's definitely a different take because it's about a 3-person relationship rather than just the teacher and student, which I liked. And I also, as great as Dominic Sessa is for his first role, there was something that I felt like he could have had a little bit more of a change of character throughout the film. I think in the beginning he was a little bit too much of an asshole, where I wanted to have a little bit more sympathy and empathy for him throughout the end of the film. And instead I was like, this is just a douchebag kid. But overall, I think it's a cute, cozy movie for people to watch.
Alexander Payne would hate us if he heard us saying his movie was cozy. Yeah, so Holdovers was my number 5, which means we go to Liz's number 5. Oh, no, we already talked about it. That was Maestro. And then Zach's number 5 is Past Lives, which, all right, so Past Lives is my number 2.
My number 1.
It is Liz's number 1. So you start this conversation.
This movie for me is just like a sweet spot in cinema of films that I love, where it's simple, well done, and straight acting. Because that for me, I just love when I get to see actors work and not necessarily battle, but that they have to compete with the camera work and the script and try to make the audience understand what's happening. Instead, it's like, let's focus on relationship and tell this story. And it honestly felt like a real like Broadway script was what we were watching happening on film, which is hard to do because sometimes it can be boring. But for me, it was so subtly done. It was so moving. It made you question a lot. And it made me walk out of that theater just reeling and wanting to tell everybody about this film. So that is why it's my number one. I think everyone should watch it. You'll feel very moved.
Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. The runtime too, Liz. The runtime. I mean, how could you forget it?
Over here, guys.
Like that had to be the reason it was number one. But yeah, this movie was great. It was a great new take on just romance and stuff, and just how important the relationships are with people that we know and love and cherish. And it puts you in the driver's seat and the perspective of, you know, like what could have been for you and yourself. And then that's all she's experiencing the whole time. That's all he's experiencing. And just that bittersweet remembrance of like cherishing those loving relationships and stuff like that. So I mean, it just is so like precise with how they explore those themes. Like if the filmmaking was not sharp in this, it would have been a very forgettable rom-com, or not comedy, but like a romance movie in general. So it could have fallen through the cracks, but the way that they did it so well, and that precise dialogue, I mean, just making like a name for the past lives, like they had the whole lore behind that, or like the legend behind that, and that was really cool. And then how the visuals play into the the relationships of how they split up and they go on different roads and that kind of stuff. Like that was all very good, like subtle energy that they were bringing to it. So yeah, DJ, what did you think?
Yeah, so this was my number two, the better of the two three-handers this year. As great as Holdovers is, the performances between Greta Lee, Tio Yu, and John Magaro, just the brilliance of that love triangle, and the fact that this is a directorial debut for Celine Song, like, I cannot wait to see what she does as a filmmaker. I think that movies like this make me so happy to see stories being told like this on the big screen, because it gives us a really great sense of what reality is. And sometimes you go into movies trying to escape reality, but other times it's like a picturesque sort of portrait of what people deal with on an everyday basis. And this story is one that is simple, but how they're able to not only utilize the camera in such a way where you're sort of just navigating their relationship the whole entire time, like as if you're a fly on the wall. And the bilingual aspect of it with the Korean language, I think, is so perfectly executed and so authentically done and so carefully done, that I think it's such just a tender, brilliant, dramatic romance movie. It's one of my favorites of the year, obviously. It's one of my favorites in a very long time. And yeah, like I echo everything you guys said. I think this movie is brilliant, and that's why it's Liz's number one, and that's why it's in our top fives as well.
Whoop,
So
whoop.
everybody should see Past Lives. Everybody should see this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes us to my number 4 now, which is also Liz's number 4, which we punted earlier from Zach.
Yes.
And this is The Iron Claw.
Oh yeah.
Let's
Okay,
do
go ahead.
it.
We're as good for a Darian rant every other episode of the Cinema Wave podcast.
Give it to us.
You're going to get it right now. The fact that this film is not being considered for any awards right now is a complete sin. The sad part is that understanding the way that they decided to release this film is what is hurting it. This movie didn't get a festival release. You're putting it out again. It's the highest grossing movie in A24's history already, which is crazy. But especially with like, I mean, A24, though they are a smaller production banner, like they have their own sort of niche feeling, and people really love their identity as a brand. This is a film that someone as a wrestling fan, a wrestling purist, and someone that just loves cinema at the same time, it's the perfect amalgamation of what it is. There's a big glaring thing in the movie that a lot of people don't like, especially if you're a wrestling fan, and it's the Ric Flair part of it, which I understand. But if you take that out of the movie, the rest of the movie I think is perfect. And it's this horrifying, haunting, tragic, true story of this family, that is the wrestling equivalent to the Kennedys, where you're just seeing tragedy after tragedy after tragedy occur. And this movie, similar to how Zach feels with like the period setting of the Holdovers, which I also love, you get completely placed in the era with this movie, with the use of music and the use of the bingo halls for wrestling arenas and even the farmland that they're on. Like, you could just, everything about this movie, there was care given to it. And I've listened to so many interviews with all the actors in it. I mean, everyone is great in this movie. Holt McCallany is fantastic. Maura Tierney is great. Jeremy Allen White, Stanley Simons, Harris Dickinson. But Zac Efron, I can't even believe, like, similar to like what we had said when we saw Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage, but he has like a little bit more of a resume. This is by far Zac Efron's best performance, and I would argue it's in the top 5 performances of the entire year, and it's going to get completely snubbed, which makes me so upset. But this movie is fantastic, and as sad as it is, I can't wait to rewatch it because of just the way that this movie makes you feel. It's like listening to a really depressing song when you're going through a really hard time. It's like, I will sit down and watch this movie because it makes you feel something. And we talked about it in our review. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it. The last scene of this movie with Efron and his sons, I mean, it made me weep, made Liz weep, made Vinny weep. So go see this movie. Go see this movie.
I don't even know what else to say. No, I don't. I mean, I think I said this in the review. This is a great film for people that have no clue about anything about wrestling, because I didn't know anything. I'd never heard of this story. I was going in completely blind. I just knew that it was about brothers, essentially. And they did such a brilliant job of getting you into the world, not making you feel like you're lost unless you already know the story, because there's so many times that films are retelling a true story and they miss key points because they assume the audience already knows it. And so they did a beautiful job. I agree, Zac Efron just transformed into this character. I'm shocked that he's not getting any attention. I mean, it is a stacked year, but I think the amount of hype that it's getting, I do agree. I think that the way they just handled it, and they released the film a little bit too late in the year to be getting the attention that it deserves from award seasons. But I mean, the world and public is just like eating this film up right now. So I hope that they keep making money and that people, once it gets released, I don't know what platform it's going on. Where's it going? Does anyone know? I think
it'll go to Max.
Once it goes to Max, I hope people just completely binge it like they're doing with Saltburn, and it becomes another hyped up film and gets to relive another momentum. But it was beautiful. It's one of the films that I couldn't tell you one thing that needed to change.
Zach.
All right, so I'm the odd man out with the
no, it's still on your list, though.
It by no means was this a bad movie either. Like, there were just other ones that I liked ahead of it. Everything that you guys are saying, I completely agree with. I really liked all of the performances in it. There was a lot of care and detail to telling this era of WWE, and I didn't know a lot about the backstory with the whole organization at that point in time. The Ric Flair thing was one thing I did notice as well, but it didn't take away from the movie enough of like, I can condemn this film. Like it wasn't like a bad part of it. I really liked the emotional core that it carries, because it could have been another just I don't know, just a very like fake plastic, like, okay, this is a wrestling movie and they're gonna make money, they're gonna like do whatever, they're gonna get bloody and whatever, and that's it. Like, they could have been that, but this was not that. I think it taps into the wrestler with Mickey Rourke, and just they're very similar, where it has an emotional core to it and they focus on the relationships, and the wrestling is not even the main focus at points, and you're more interested in who they are as people and what they're willing to do to get what they want, and then how toxic the father can be too. So I really like that, and there was a lot of attention to detail with that. So kind of going on to what you're saying, but
it's a great film.
Yeah.
All right. So that was our 4s. We already covered Zach's 4. We're going to go to Liz's number 3, which she's been patiently waiting to talk about. With Zach's number 10, we are talking about Barbie.
Let's go.
Go ahead, Liz. Go off, queen.
I don't even know where to start with Barbie, to be honest. For me, it was my first 10 of the year. I think it is a perfect movie. It's so funny. It hits your heart in the end. They wrap it up beautifully. Greta can't do anything wrong, in my opinion. I think she just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the production value on this film, it's just gorgeous. These sets and the costumes, every actor came and delivered. I mean, Margot, the fact that she not only was the lead actress in it, but also then was producer on it. I mean, it's definitely not an easy task. And the fact that this film did so well at the box office too, it just deserves so much praise. And I think I want it to keep getting nominations. I think that a part of Hollywood is still definitely leans away from women-driven films. And so for them, they are like, oh, Barbie, a fun filmed movie, but like not very Oscar worthy. So I hope that people keep putting out these films so that the award circuit can finally realize that just because it's a fun pink movie doesn't mean that it shouldn't be taken serious. So I love Barbie, and everyone should keep watching it. Give them your money.
I'm a Barbie stan too. I'm sorry for giving it the number 10, but I still try and give out that Ken energy whenever I can. But it has a lot of rewatchability. I just watched it again with my girlfriend, and she was also like, "How do you have films ahead of Barbie? Like this is." But yeah, I mean, like I said, nothing wrong with the movie in my mind. I just had other things that I liked ahead of this, but. Yeah, it's got a ton of rewatchability. The humor is great. If they played it as a serious film, it wouldn't have worked. I think they were right to make it a comedy and keep it sharp and punctual with the humor. And just the messages that they leave in it are very profound for young women everywhere. And that was something that hasn't been done as correctly like recently. And now that it has been out in the spotlight a little bit now with that group of people too, with Margot, with Ryan, and Noah also co-writing with Greta. Like there's a lot of surge of energy coming out of this that will definitely be resonating for a long time in Hollywood. So I really like it.
Yeah, this movie didn't make my list, but it was still a really, really great movie. And the more I watch it, the more I do enjoy it. I've seen it twice now, and the second time I definitely liked it more. And even in our review, I ended up giving it a higher score than I winded up thinking I was going to give it a go again. The middle of that movie and the Will Ferrell aspect still I really don't like, and that's why it's not on my list.
Yes.
But I think, and I love Will Ferrell as an actor, but I think every other part of that movie is so brilliant, and the talent that's associated with that film is incredible. I mean, like you said, Margot, to be able to really put her foot in the sand with Lucky Chap in this movie, and make such a great film, not only for young girls everywhere, but literally for everyone to take a look at themselves and in the mirror and what society is nowadays, and make a great commentary on it, and do it in a way where Margot said this in a recent interview. I think it was with Variety, kind of going off what you were saying, Liz, but it's like she wanted to just make a movie that was really fun, and she wanted to make a movie that was original and that girls would love, like young girls would be able to look up to and enjoy. They had no expectation for Academy Awards, which even if they get nominated, I think it's the fact that a movie based on the doll of Barbie is going to get nominated for multiple Academy Awards, I think is remarkable. It's similar to kind of what Dark Knight went through back in 2008 when they were like, there's never going to be a comic book movie, and then it gets all these Oscar noms.
Yeah.
I think that Margot is brilliant in the role. I think Gosling in a lot of other years is probably the front runner for the Academy Award as Ken. It's just a really, really tough year at supporting actor. Greta, I agree with you. The thing with Greta to me that's so interesting is for her to be able to make a movie of this scale and size and intelligence, and then the next thing she's doing is Narnia, and she's like afraid to do it. I'm like, how can you be afraid to do anything at this point in your career because of what you were able to make out of this movie? Because I think Barbie was so great the original film was conceptualized as something entirely different.
Yeah.
So,
which would have been taken a completely different way.
And it would have been, I really genuinely believe it would have been a bad movie.
Yeah.
If Greta wasn't attached, Noah wasn't attached, Margot wasn't attached, Ryan, Michael Cera has a great
cameo. Like, it's so good at it.
So yeah, Barbie did miss my list, but it's a film that I really, really enjoyed, and I think it has by far the best soundtrack of the year.
Oh, at 100%.
So good.
Deserves
So-
all the awards.
Also, screw Joe Coy for making that joke at
Yeah.
the
Yes.
whole Golden Globes. So stupid, so out of line. I don't really care if it was a joke either. He just goes, "Oh, like Oppenheimer's based off this huge opus book, and then Barbie's just about a doll with big boobs." Like that was literally the point they made the movie.
Yeah.
to opposite counter that kind of argument. Like, oh,
I
this is
know.
just what a doll. Like they reinvented Barbie in that movie, so that was the whole point of it. Screw that, like I'm done with that.
No, I
Everyone was
agree.
fed up with that.
I know.
but-
I am glad that the audience didn't like
yeah.
pity laugh, that they actually were just like, ooh, no,
Like,
dude.
ugh,
Like you
yeah,
completely,
like-
you obviously didn't see the movie, first of all.
Yes.
But then also like we'll get to Oppenheimer, but it's about a guy that made the atomic bomb. Like it's not like
Yeah.
like Jesus
not
Christ
exactly,
himself coming.
exactly.
Like don't if
Yeah.
you're gonna make a joke about Barbie, make a joke about Oppenheimer. Don't praise it.
Yeah, sure.
But
Yeah.
teach their own.
He was a
I don't
terrible-
agree with it.
he was a terrible
He was
host.
terrible.
He was
But
a terrible fucking host.
anyways, I digress.
Anyway, okay, so that was your 3. We did
Yes.
Zach's 3, Maestro already. My 3 is an earlier punt from Zach, which Liz has not seen
I
this
have
film.
not seen it.
This is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So this is another one that I rewatched. I rewatched 2 movies on New Year's Eve this year. I rewatched Spider-Man and I rewatched Oppenheimer. Especially because those 2 and Past Lives, which was my number 2, were the ones that I was like constantly shuffling in my brain. I'm like, and they're all so entirely different. Across the Spider-Verse was one of our first reviews we did on the channel. I did it with Michael, who, Michael would be able to speak to this even higher than I could. But I think it's genuinely the greatest animated movie ever made. And I think that it is the amount, again, like talk about care with over 50 different animation styles in this movie. And you just see it all unfold on screen. Like this was one of my favorite movie theater experiences of my entire life. And there's just so much going on with this movie. And despite people, that's why I hate people saying that, and Guillermo del Toro says this all the time, it's like animation is not a genre, it's a medium. Because you can really tell really effective and brilliant and thought-provoking stories through animation. It doesn't mean that it's a whole separate genre. And I think that this movie goes toe-to-toe with all of these other films we've talked about this year, in spite of it being an animated movie. The voice performances are fantastic. I mean, so many people to praise. Shamik Moore, Haley Steinfeld is brilliant in this. Oscar Isaac is a great new addition. Jake Johnson is maybe my favorite Spider-Man. And Daniel Kaluuya is great in this. There's so many great voice performances. But the emotion that comes with not knowing who you are in the world and trying to establish yourself and realize as a young person what your identity is and trying to associate with a group of people or why decisions are right versus wrong. All of that is told through this story and through a comic book medium that, again, like took them years to develop and work on. And I just think it's such an incredible all-around movie, and I think everyone should see it. But Liz hasn't seen it yet,
I can't speak to
so
it.
she can't speak to it. But Zach?
Yeah, I really agree with everything you're saying too. I liked Across the Spider-Verse, the 4-year undertaking that they did just for the animation was pretty incredible. There's very few animated movies that can rival the style that they do and every detail that they go into. The way that they handled this movie was fantastic. The first movie was so well received that everyone was wondering how they were going to top it, and somehow they did. So I really like this movie. I thought it's very entertaining for any superhero fan. So they should absolutely rush to see it if they haven't already. But I just had other movies that I preferred a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it was number 9 on my list. But
It's a tough year.
It is a tough year.
All right, so that was my number 3. We did Zach's number 3, which is Maestro. We did Liz's number 3, which is Barbie. Let's go into Liz, your number 2, because none of us have seen it besides you.
It's number 2.
Your number 2 is All of Us
Dying to
Strangers.
see it.
I'll start
Yeah, I can't
sobbing
wait
right
to see
now.
this
I'll start
movie.
crying. Bring tissues. I don't want to say too much because I think a part of what I loved about this is the script itself. and that it doesn't give a lot away in the beginning. It keeps you trying to figure out where they're going with this. It's definitely a new concept that I don't think I've seen before in a film. I just really appreciate the topic of grief that they cover and the point of view that they come at with it. I really don't want to say too much just because.
Can you talk about the performances?
Yeah, Andrew Scott is just like gorgeous in this. He is. I don't think I've seen work from him to this stature before. You have so much empathy for him, and the way he handles the dynamic of the character. It's just he's so good. I don't know what else to say besides he's so good. The relationship between him and Paul Mescal's character is really beautiful to watch unfold on screen. They have just a great connection between the two of them, watching that kind of flower over time throughout the film. And then it's just heartbreaking of a story. It's really beautiful. I hope more people see it. I feel like because it hasn't come out yet, not a lot of people know about it. I hope that it keeps getting the hype. I don't know if it will, just because there's so much being put out right now that I hope it doesn't get saturated out. But it's a really beautiful film about relationship and dealing with the passing of people in your life.
I can't wait to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard nothing but incredible things. And Andrew Hay, I haven't seen any of his films, but everybody says like all of his movies are so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And so nuanced, and there's so much about human connection in all of his movies. So this is another one that's on my list, and I haven't had a chance to see it yet. Zach, I think you feel similarly, right?
Yeah, I'm dying to see this one. This is like that would probably crack my top 5 if it's everything that you're saying.
I was gonna say, I hope it lives up to it, and I just wasn't having like a good day where I was like, imagine you guys are like, this is terrible.
No, yeah, you have good takes on movies. So like anything that you like found in that way, super profound.
Sometimes she has good takes on movies.
Are we getting to something?
Spicy. No, I'm joking. No, I agree. I'm really stoked for this movie. His next film, which was just in the trades, is going to be Ben Stiller and Colin Farrell, which is very interesting to me.
Interesting combo.
Terms of,
Really?
Coming off of Andrew.
Do we know if it's what typo? Is it like more comedic?
No, it's more dramatic. I'll have the article up on Cinema Wave soon.
Thank you. I need to read it.
Check it out.
Okay.
So that was your number 2. We talked about my number 2, which was Past Lives. Now it's time to get to Zach's number 2, which is my number 1 and is Liz's number 10, and it's Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan's magnum opus.
Why
Zach,
don't we go with Zach?
You started off.
I mean, a starter. How do you start with this movie? It's just a 3-hour Christopher Nolan opus, and I mean, there's so much with this movie. I want to rewatch it again soon too. Everything that he dumped into his 20 plus years of filmmaking is in this movie. He has a great screenplay. He has great use of black and white and color. He shot it on some of the cleanest film you could possibly get these days. Like, and to shoot it on 70 for 3 hours is insane. To go into an undertaking of a story like this, there's probably very few directors that could pull it off as well as this too. And everyone, for it to be so widely well received is really amazing too. For, when it went up against Barbie too, that was the whole thing, was how are these polar opposites like doing so well at the same time. And you can just appreciate the filmmaking behind this alone, along with the story and how crippled this man's psyche was to the relationships around him, and then the morality behind him. So there's a lot to like about this movie. But yeah, Liz, what do you think? Number 10.
It's in your top 10.
No, it isn't my top 10. I appreciate this film for the grandiose that it is, and how much attention and how much work behind and production they had to do. And technically, it's a gorgeous film. My gripes with it: that time, that runtime, people, like it should have been a limited series. It's very long. I found it very difficult. Like, I kept wanting to grab out my phone so that I could Google what they were talking about, because I felt like it was moving so fast and it was expecting me to already know what was happening, that I was trying to just piece the pieces together. And then all of a sudden 10 minutes had passed and I was like, I still don't fully understand what's happening. Yeah, though it's, what was my other gripe?
Florence Pugh,
Yeah,
right?
Florence Pugh, I know.
Florence
it's a
Pugh.
great movie of
I
yours.
felt like her character, I mean, if you really want to hear all my thoughts, go watch our episode on it. I don't think her character was needed. I think they could have totally cut her out. I know you guys disagree with me on that completely, but it is what it is. It's my opinion. And
It is.
it is. Yeah. Also, the thing that made me put this number 10 is that because I appreciate it for what it is, but I will never watch this film again. I watched it once. I clicked it off my list. I'm never rewatching it. And so that's why it's not higher on my list, because everything on my list is things that I would rewatch in a heartbeat. This, you'd have to pay me.
You did like Emily
did.
Blunt though, right?
I did. She was she was very good. She was a standout. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a bad movie. It's just like not my vibe.
No, it's totally fair.
Just like you guys didn't put Barbie high on
Fair.
yours.
No, it's
I
totally
didn't
fair.
put
It's
Oppenheimer
totally,
on
I
mine.
feel like it's
fair.
pretty even in that way. Yeah.
I think this is the only movie this year that is perfect that I've seen. As much as I love all the other films in my top 10, Past Lives I think is brilliant. Spider-Verse I've talked about at length. Iron Claw, very small issues. I've seen this movie twice now, and I feel the opposite of you, where like I want to watch it again already. I always really appreciated Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker. Dark Knight was always Inception was probably my favorite of his films, which is, I've seen that movie in theaters. I saw that movie in theaters, I think like 4 times, I think, which still is my most ever. And it's hard because I don't know if I like that movie more than this film, but this movie is just so fantastic in every which way in my eyes. It's my favorite score maybe in any movie ever. The visual work that they did, the camera work, the sets, the incredible ensemble that Nolan was able to bring together for this film. The fact that Matt Damon had to convince his wife that after promising in therapy he would not do any other movies for the next 2 years unless Christopher Nolan called, and then he gets the phone call from Nolan. It's just a testament to how great of a filmmaker he is. Cillian holds so much of this movie on his shoulders, and it's great to see an actor who of his caliber in terms of talent, but someone that's a little lesser known, get the spotlight of what this movie is. Robert Downey Jr., you get to see that he can act as someone other than Tony Stark for the first time in fucking 10 years, which is awesome. Emily Blunt is fantastic in this movie. The direction is fantastic. I just think it's a perfect movie, and I think that I loved it. I loved Oppenheimer very much, and I will say for the going back really quickly to the Barbenheimer of it all, that somewhat saved the movie industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's so much to that where like they play hand in hand with one another, Barbie and Oppenheimer, that they're going to always be connected in that way. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's great that people came out in droves for weeks, and that a movie despite how popular the doll of Barbie is, I mean, a Barbie movie grossing almost $2 billion at the box office, and a 3-hour biopic of a nuclear physicist getting $980 million at the box office is a beautiful thing. And it's great for movie fans. So I think as a whole, Oppenheimer's my number 1.
All
It's a
right.
good take. It's a good take.
I just
It's a
went
good
off.
take.
We have one final.
We have one final, and it is Zach's number 1, which unfortunately neither of us have seen. So
I almost watched
go
it the
off,
other night,
King.
Oh yeah, Anatomy of a Fall,
but-
right?
Pitch us,
Yes.
Zach. Convince
All right.
us to watch it.
I'm
this
stoked
weekend.
to see this movie, by
Me
the way. I
too.
can't wait to see it.
So this is also bilingual. It is. I think it's. I want to say it's French.
It is French.
Okay, it is French. But I think what's throwing me off is I can't tell if it's in the French Alps or somewhere in Sweden. I don't know. But that's not really important. But so, okay, so this is a murder mystery, right? But this is not spoiling anything either. You're just trying to figure out if Sandra Huller killed her husband or she didn't. And that's pretty much the whole movie. But the way that this screenplay is laid out so meticulously, it reminds me a little bit of 12 Angry Men and like a courtroom drama, basically, where they just present evidence throughout the movie that shifts your opinion back and forth of if she did it or not. And she's also so good at playing subtly where you don't know if she did it or not, and most of the time, and you're like, wait, like the way that she's like pushing back emotionally, like is she being defensive or does she actually have a reason for doing that? Like she's almost playing two different sides to the story at the same time, which is really good. And then her motives are getting revealed kind of slightly throughout, but then you also don't know if it's a legitimate motive. And there's a lot of circumstantial stuff where the kid is like in the area when certain things happen, and then like little details are just getting sprinkled throughout the film and little breadcrumbs where it has to be so planned out in a screenplay for that to happen. So it was a really big testament to those achievements. And I don't want to say too much more without you guys seeing it, but the way that the screenplay alone was organized was so good, and Sandra is so good in this. She's like probably my personal pick for the Oscars, but I love Emma Stone too. Like I will not be upset if her or Lily wins it, but she was just so different from at least crime movies that I've seen recently. Like she's very like I said, she's playing like two different psyches at the same time, kind of the way that they present these details, and she's very devastating in it. She's really good. So check it out. Like Anatomy of a Fall, it's fantastic. It's a great foreign film if you're into them or you're trying to break into it because it's half English, half French. So it's worth it. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm stoked. Yeah, I've heard the fact that it's basically playing out the dramatization of what happened on top of the courtroom. The sort of two genres of it is what makes it so like both movies or both parts stand alone as being great, and the two of them together makes it such a really great overall movie. So it's definitely on my list. It's definitely on Liz's list.
It is.
So we're looking forward to seeing it, and I had fun talking about my top 10 favorite movies of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me, Liz, and Zach discuss all of our individual top 10s for the year, as well as punting many times. We will next week be releasing our episode of our top 10 favorite television shows of 2023. That'll be me, Liz, and Michael in the interview chairs, or the host chairs, I should say, talking about that as well. So let us know in the comments what you guys have as your top 10 for the year. We'd love to hear your lists. See if there's other ones that maybe we haven't seen this year that we should check out that you guys really enjoyed. Other ones, maybe you agree with our opinions. Maybe some you disagree with. That's great. We love the discourse in the comments. If you guys don't follow us already, please be sure to follow us at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, as well as on TikTok, Facebook, and Threads. You can also follow us at _Culture Wave Media on Instagram and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. Be sure to like this video and please hit the bell for alerts so you guys can get alerts as soon as we post new content, and subscribe to the channel. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.